Okay, this is the FarmHopLife Men's Forum number 2. I'm Matt Derosier of FarmHopLife. I've got. Who are you?
Schnese from Study Present.
Where are you at?
I'm in Appleton, Wisconsin. Well, not.
Awesome.
I'm used to saying that. I'm in Black Creek, Wisconsin.
Crick.
Born and raised in Appleton, but we're out in Black Creek now.
Awesome. So, did you get a chance to look at the show notes tonight?
Briefly. But if you just kind of like remind me as you go through,
sure.
I have the answers.
So a couple of current event things first would be do you watch the news? Do you watch the news at all?
I try not to. My energy has been much better.
Sure.
Since not watching.
What have you heard about this bird flu thing?
Okay, yeah. So my wife, she's on Facebook, just for like business stuff most of the time. She tries not to go on Facebook. But our like chicken people in the area have been kind of infatuated with. I don't know if that's the right word.
Infatuated.
They're into it. They're into it.
They're into it. Like they buy the, like they're afraid of getting, like their birds getting bird flu.
That's right. It's like,
okay.
Can't have any visitors on the farm. We got to bring our chickens like either inside the house or inside the wherever they are, and like don't let them go out. And it's very familiar with another time in history that happened about 2 years ago.
Yes, very much so. I was going to say, like, have they tried giving their chickens like hand sanitizer or like Clorox or Lysol wipes or something?
Yeah, or little chicken masks.
Yeah, little chicken masks.
Yeah. No, not at this point.
Man. Yeah, go ahead.
But the parallels are so similar and interesting. It's the ones that should be concerned about it are the like mega producers, where something like that getting in there, of course it's going to wreak havoc on it.
Because they're sick birds to start with, like they're unhealthy. Yeah,
that's right. And so like the backyard producer,
sweet, we got another guy here.
They're living their best lives, and that's how they should be.
How's it going, Josiah?
Good. How are you guys doing?
Doing good, thanks. Josiah, Dylan, Josiah. Howdy.
Hi, Josiah.
Josiah is on a homestead over the moon in Missouri. We're talking about bird flu. You buying it? What's your take?
You know, I wouldn't doubt that at least initially it was something. I don't know what it is beyond that. There's that whole thing about timing. If you have multiple, how many times do you buy something before you have to start asking questions? And I think it's fair to question a little bit now at this point.
Absolutely.
Definitely concerning. Between everything else that's going on. So yeah, I think especially if you're a little guy right now, then honestly the big thing that you can say, regardless of why, it's maybe throw some chicken in the freezer or start raising them. I can't do anything about it, right? But there's options at least right now. So
what are you supposed to be looking for when you like for a chicken that has bird flu? Like, I don't even know. I haven't researched this thing at all. It smells like it stinks, like it's funky, like, because it's so familiar with, dare I say it, Coronavirus. Yeah, the C word. Don't say the C word. So I don't know. I haven't looked into it. Like it kind of seems like engineered food scarcity to me. I don't know.
I don't know either. I don't know what the symptoms are. I know back when my parents raised birds, we had a flock that we kind of shared, and we lost the entire flock. It was about 27 birds. They were throwing up liquid basically.
Oh,
Lots of
gross.
stuff coming out of their mouths and just keeling over. And I don't know what that was. We never had anything like that happen, but we tried to cull the sick birds,
Mm-hmm.
and that didn't work at all. Like we literally culled, and we were killing the last one, and then two more started showing symptoms like that minute. So I don't know. I don't know what you look for in the bird flu. I mean, generally speaking, you can tell pretty quick if a bird's not doing well.
Sure.
I don't know what you do. I mean, apparently the only thing you can do is kill the flock. As to if there's a treatment or something, I don't know. I guess I could Google it real quick.
Sure. Yeah, it's just kind of weird between this and like food processing centers going up in flames all of a sudden, like over the last 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 months. I guess I don't know how far back this goes, but it's kind of sus.
I did not realize that there was a pattern with that. I just pulled up YouTube today and saw that the Azure Standard video.
Yeah.
And apparently happened a couple days ago, but this is my first time hearing about it. And I was shocked. And then I saw an article that was talking about other processors like Kellogg's and various meat processors. And then in the article it says you're not allowed to question if it's like a conspiracy theory. You're just supposed to accept that I don't know, a random small aircraft crashing into a processing plant like just
Right.
happens. And it's one thing to be a conspiracy theorist, but
Yeah.
one thing that we learned from permaculture is to look for the patterns. And there's a pattern here when seen this kind of activity in the past. So you have to start asking questions, and it just starts leading you different places.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm trying to find the thread someone had posted about all the processing plants that have gone up in flames recently. I know this isn't a conspiracy podcast. I put that life behind me, but okay, let's see. Walmart Distribution Center, Maracopia Food Pantry, the Rio Fresh Onion District Center, Conway Beef and Pork, Gem State Processing Headquarters, Taylor Farms, and Azure Foods. All that started in 316 all the way back to 419. So, yeah, I mean, there's whatever I listed, 6, 7 of them just over the course of a month. It's kind of weird. So, anything?
Yeah, and I mean,
anything
when
to
you were
add on
talking
those?
about leaving that behind you, I used to be a bit of a conspiracy nut. And honestly, it kind of, you end up kind of getting worried about things that are enough out of your control. At least I did. I'll just speak for myself. I
Sure.
would get worried about things that were entirely out of my control, and I think what I was saying earlier about the bird flu, it applies with the food thing too. Like, unless I own a food processing place, there's nothing I can do about it other than say, hey, maybe I should get some more food.
Absolutely, that's what I'm thinking.
So, and I mean, as the shelves behind me might indicate, I take the food pretty seriously. But
As you
but now's a
should.
good time. Now's a good time, and it's never a bad. I mean, again, the steps you can take, whether it's the chicken, whether it's the food processing, food scarcity. If you buy the right stuff, it's not a waste of money.
Mm-hmm.
It's not, you're gonna eat it. I'm not suggesting that you throw 500 pounds of rice in your
500
basement
pounds.
if you don't eat rice,
Right.
But you can buy stuff that your family will eat, and it doesn't get wasted.
Right.
So
I say
Oh.
the conspiracy thing a little tongue in cheek. I had a conspiracy podcast not too long ago, and kind of gave up on that to do this, and it was like not taking it seriously. Not like, hey, let's talk about 9/11 for the 100th time. Like, it was like, hey, so that was weird, right?
Yeah, I went down to the basement here. So yeah, my pantry's behind me. Doesn't look as quite as stocked as yours, Josiah. But also here's my food security.
Let's show it off. Oh, how do I make him bigger? Oh, wrong one. There we go. I got you. There you go.
I'll
You
see,
got rabbits.
I'm a little
Yeah.
envious.
Yeah, so that's her. I don't know. We haven't named him. Our son names all of our rabbits. But this is a litter of 5. And I was checking on her the other day, and it's the first time I got bit by a rabbit.
Oh man, I bet that hurt.
Yeah. I mean, it didn't hurt that bad, but it was certainly surprising.
Oh yeah, that would more like startle you, kind of like getting nipped, like pecked by a chicken. Like it doesn't hurt. It's just like, hey, knock it off.
Yeah, exactly.
I imagine getting bit by a rabbit's a lot. Getting bit by a hamster. Like it might draw blood.
Yeah, with a little bigger teeth.
Right? Yeah. So do you guys have more to add on the bird flu or the processing plants, food processing centers?
No,
Okay.
no, I think we covered it.
Okay. So then let's go into the main topic is education. Dylan, why don't you start us off? What's your education? Like high school, GED, some college, no college?
Yep. I have a bachelor's in chemistry. My full degree is a what is it? American Chemical Society with professional certification in chemistry. So I had to take some advanced coursework to get that degree. But I mean, as you can see, we're on a homestead here. I'm in an engineering light career. But if I would have gone back, I probably would have done something more in the raising animals sphere.
But it's paying the bills though, right? I mean, I'm assuming that's a pretty decent paying job, what you're doing.
It does.
So,
yep.
I mean, yeah, maybe it's like a slow transition out of what you're doing to be able to, farm full time and like move that homestead to a farm or whatever it is your goals are,
Yep. No, that's that's a good way of looking at it.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, you're not at that level yet to be able to stay on the farm full time. So you got to supplement it somehow, right?
That's right.
So Josiah, what about you?
I have a major in history and a minor in economics.
Oh.
Nothing.
Any particular
exciting.
Part of history?
American history.
I
hated school. I have an aunt and uncle with no children that volunteered to pay for college if I went.
Oh,
and
wow.
My parents said that I would be an idiot to not take them up on that offer despite the fact that I didn't want to go to school. So I chose something that I found enjoyable rather than something that pays the bills.
It was
Because I
more
do
of like
nothing.
I'm going to do this to shut you up kind of thing.
Well, I mean, I have a piece of paper, I guess, which is really all it boils down to. It's never. I've only had one job since I graduated, so it's never really mattered much. But
Sure.
you know, but and of course I do nothing in that field, so I work IT. So
Did that help you get your current job, do you think?
no,
No, not at all.
I tell people all the time. I have never had a job, or I've never gotten a job that I didn't know somebody at. Like I've always known somebody and gotten the job there primarily because I knew the person.
So
Never.
school has not really helped you like whatsoever. It was more
Not
of a connection
college.
for you.
Not college.
Okay.
Not at all.
Sure. Whereas Dylan's schooling is more like specific, like where it actually did help him, I'm assuming, get the job.
That's right.
Being able to
stepping
like
stone there.
Right. Yeah. So like in that case, it was like it's not just some general field. Like it was like, okay, I'm chemical engineering, and then took it like another step further to get the job that you have.
That's right. Yeah, I started
Okay.
out. I got my foot in a door at a paper coating company, and then I became a chemist there. So I was using my degree directly using my degree for like a year and a half. And then this opportunity opened up at a paper machine supply company. So I've been there for 4 years now.
Oh, nice.
Yep.
So very cool. I'm a two-time college dropout. So after high school, I went up to school in Duluth, Minnesota, if anyone really gives a crap where that is. Just to like kind of get out of the house, went into like computer networking. And like the first semester was fine. Like learning about like software versus hardware versus whatever. And second semester was like, here's how you basically manually program a router. And I was like, this sucks. And didn't want to do that anymore. And so I ended up dropping out and just like worked like probably like I don't know, 5-6 other jobs. And then I was like, I think I'm ready to go try something else. So I went into a technical college for electronics, and I did that for like 2.5 years, and I got all my core classes with a lot of help. And I failed this one math class like 3 times, and I was like, I was like 9 credits away from getting my associates, and I was like, I don't want to do this anymore anyway. It's like, this is stupid. Math is hard.
No, I get that. When I was going to community college in high school, and I failed college algebra, and then so I it was the last thing really standing between me and associates, and I learned that the college that I ended up going to didn't require college algebra for a history degree. They just required that you take a class, finite mathematics. So I very quickly transferred up there so that I could take finite mathematics instead of college algebra, because I apparently couldn't pass it no matter what I did.
Sure.
So it worked out.
Yeah, worked out. You both homeschool your kids, right?
I do.
That's right.
Okay. What do you think you're gonna say to your kids when they get to college age? Or are they gonna like, even like 16? Are you gonna encourage them to go to like community college, or is it kind of like free reign, like do whatever you want to do, not gonna push you to go one way or another?
It's interesting. So I kind of liken what they're gonna do after they turn 18 to like. So we were just talking about math, and if you put 2 points on a piece of graph paper, they make a line.
Yeah.
And so on the graph, 0, 0 is when they were born.
Yep.
Let's see if I can do this right.
It's backwards
0, 0
in
is when they were
StreamYard.
born.
Yeah.
And it's your job as a parent to steer this point.
Sure.
And so with all of their life activities that they get to do on the farm, hopefully they get to pick something that, you know, from the time, you know, on this line after this point right here, they have all this experience and all this foundation just pushing them towards the next thing.
Sure.
And I'm not worried about what they're going to pursue after that.
Sure. Okay.
But we're always here as a resource to guide them.
I gotcha. So like, I'm going to carry you this far in your homeschooling, and then after that, go for it. You're on your own, like self-directed, learn this, learn that, go to school, don't go to school, learn a trade, don't learn a trade.
Yeah, call. Exactly.
Okay.
And if you put one more line after that, then it becomes like that's a true line, is when you have 3 points next to each other. So if they don't know, like, you know, where that next point should be, well, then we can work on that. How much money do you want to make? What is your lifestyle? What do you like to do? What do you envision your lifestyle being? And then we can kind of sit down and say, okay, you know, this kind of lifestyle is more supported by a doctorate or working as a tradesman. Right. So there's a lot of brainstorming that we can do at that point.
Sure. Yeah. Like, you know, you got to balance all those levels, right? Like money and skill set and interest and, you know, career path, I guess, if that's something they want to do, or like they could do what I do and like work in something for a couple of years, get bored of it, and move to a maybe similar, maybe completely different field and start over, and then just do it again and again and again. Just a constant state of starting over. But you learn a lot of different stuff, a lot of different people.
Yeah, I mean, it takes you where you want to, where you need to be. Learn being a polymath, learning a bunch of different things.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, it makes life more interesting too.
It really does. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, this is enough. Let's move on.
Yeah.
What about you, Josiah?
Probably pretty similar, I think, to what Dylan was saying. You know, I was probably the last kind of age group or whatever that college probably did make sense. So like, it's pretty easy to say college is a pretty crappy thing for the average person. But I think, I mean, that could look different when my eldest gets there, you know, in 10 years and starts trying to decide, you know, hey, what do I want to do? So, but I think it's fair to, honestly, and this is something that never came up with my parents, and it's fair to be honest with your kid and, you know, say, hey, what do you want to do? And quite frankly, do you have what it takes to do it? You know, are you going to be successful at it? I mean, it sounds mean, but are you smart enough for it? Are you driven enough for it? Are you, you know, do you have what it takes to go get a doctorate? You know, you say you want to be a doctor. You know, do you have what it takes to spend 12 years in school, kind of thing? And just be honest and look at them. You know, like Dylan was saying, actually, you know, when it comes down to it, ask them, like, what do you want? What do you want to go do? And do you have what it takes? And, you know, I may not have the answers for him. I may only be able to guide a little bit, but give him the piece of advice that is, you know, do I think you have it?
Right.
And I think it's fair to do that. I think one of the things we do with kids is we you know, society told kids, all kids, go to college, go to college, go to college, when there were a lot of kids that was just terrible advice.
Right.
You know, they would have been much more fulfilled doing something. And there's no shame in going and being a plumber or going and working at the assembly line. There's no shame in any of these things if it provides for you and your family and it makes you happy. And
Exactly.
you got to be honest about that. So, and I think that's the only thing that's fair for your kid. It's the only thing that's fair for anybody's kid, is to just have an honest appraisal and say, hey, maybe this is a good path for you, maybe it's not. So, and that's what I want to do for my kids, is give them a fair assessment, and see what that math looks like in 10 years. Maybe college is a
Right.
good thing, maybe it's not.
And with them only being 18, do they really even need to know what they want to do? I mean, I'm still trying to figure out what I want to do, like, is
No,
that
that's fair.
fair? Yeah.
No, that's a good I tell people that a lot. I got a job in a field completely unrelated, and it paid the bills. And it turns out I like the people I work with.
Mm-hmm.
And is it necessarily what I thought I would be doing 10 years ago? No, but I've been working for the same company for 10 years now. 2 different roles, so I've done 2 different things now. But 18-year-old me would have said, "Hey, I want to do something that I love." But it turns out that like 24, 25-year-old me, perfectly happy working IT,
Mm-hmm.
paying the bills, and giving me some free time. I work from home, so I don't have a commute. I don't have any of these things. So it turns out, you're absolutely right. Like 18-year-old may not understand what they really want at the time. So
Yeah, I'd also add to that, the decisions that you make when you're 18. I mean, especially for men, I just found out that our, what is it, neonatal cortex, like the main part of the brain that's responsible for decision making and maturity, doesn't fully develop until 25.
Yeah, we're big dumb animals. Yeah.
Yeah. So how are you supposed? Or can we swear on this podcast?
I'll allow it.
Okay. How the hell are you supposed to know what you want to do with your life at 18 when you're not
yeah,
fully developed?
Right.
So
Yeah.
so you make a decision, and it might possibly be a decision that gets you into debt. Um, that influences when you can start a family. So that's what I would tell young people right now is if you want to have kids, um, I mean, really think about, is the degree that I'm getting going to inhibit my the time that I can start my family. And for some people, they start families later, and that's okay. Like, everyone makes the decisions that are right for them. But I mean, it's something to think about in the overall picture.
Mm-hmm.
I think you as far as the whole family thing, there's so many opportunities. My wife's a hairstylist, and so she went through 9 months of schooling, and I mean, realistically, probably still she makes more per hour than I do. When she works, she makes really good money.
Mm-hmm.
So it gives her, it gave us the freedom. We had a 2 income family to start out. We got the ball rolling, and then she was able to kind of set that aside when it came time to raise our family. But jobs like that, it's the freedom to do that with very little time invested and very little money invested. She got a job that makes good money, and let us start a family. And so you're right, when it comes to that commitment with college or whatever, like you're kind of putting a gamble forward. And I mean, my wife and I, that was a blessing in of itself, because we've been dating since high school, so we knew, she was going to be able to work and while I was going to school, and then there would be a bit of a role reversal. So we were able to start a family about when we wanted to,
Right.
because of those choices. Unintentionally, it wasn't something that we had thought about. Definitely something to mention to your kids, though, is maybe understand if you got to go into debt to get your education, it's going to cost you something, and it may not pay off for you. It is a gamble, especially if you're 18 and you don't know what the heck you want to do. So,
right? If I continued to pursue, to kind of bring this back to education, if I continued to pursue whatever degree or whatever, I would still have student loans. When we first moved here, it was within the first year or two, I was able to actually pay off what little student loans I had left. And so then that allowed me to pay off my truck faster. And then we're still, paying off Katie's car and her student loans. And so, but she stays home, with our son. So if I guess what I'm saying is, if I continue to keep going to school, rack up more debt, and not really use it to, whatever it is I wanted to do, she might still have to be working and just to keep up on all the bills and stuff. So when when her job got too bad, just to be there because her boss is awful, she's like, the numbers work out that you make enough that I can stay home. I'm like, if you did the numbers, let's go, let's do it. Sounds good.
and I think to Dylan's point, excuse me, about not knowing what you want to do, I think that's the other thing to be aware of is, when you're putting that time in, 4 years potentially on something pretty specific, and you realize that, hey, I didn't really want to do that. I have a buddy that got a master's degree in English, and he wanted to be a teacher, and then he taught for 2 semesters and realized he didn't want to be a teacher. And I forget, I don't know if it still holds true, but the average guy switches what he does every 7 years or so, every 8 years, something like that. And so, especially if you're if you don't, if you're not going to stick with what you were going to do, or if the industry changes,
Yeah.
then your college degree, as it was, may not really be specific. I switched I went from being a customs broker to being IT, same company, but I switched my role completely. So it happens to a lot of guys. And that's worth noting too, is that you may end up, your education may be in a subject that has no bearing on what you're doing. So,
do you think it's easy for kids to do more what they want to do now than it has been in the past? Like, hey, if you want to go design the world's greatest golf clubs, or I don't know, whatever, do you think that's easier today than ever? Or are there so many hurdles in the way, because of I don't know, patents and lawyers and copyright infringement or whatever, and all these things, it's just starting capital, all these things are in the way to actually get started? I mean, do you think something like that's difficult to do?
I think if you have low capital, if you have a low capital venture that you want to start, like you are interested in X and you want to start a YouTube video on it, and then you want to do events based on that topic. I mean, to go into something that is relatively low capital, I think there's a lot of opportunities for that. But yeah, on the flip side, there are so many opportunities out there, low capital or not. Yeah, I think you just have to go out there and find it. Yeah, I mean, Josiah, what are your thoughts?
I remember I was 18, and I had a lady say something to the effect of, you got to get out there and find your niche and settle in. And being 18, whatever, I thought I was just gonna grab the world. and you know, blow stuff up, make an impact. And I think to some degree, you know, this idea, especially now, that I think a lot of people really do think that they can just do just about anything. And I think you're right about there being maybe fewer options. I don't necessarily know that that's a bad thing. Um, you know, people, and I'm not saying it was all good, but it used to be that if you were a son, you did what your dad did. And that's not necessarily a great thing. I imagine there was probably lots of artists who had to suffer being tailors, even though they didn't want to be a tailor, right? Or, you know,
Sure.
whatever. And there was, I mean, I know there were farmers. They didn't want to be farmers, but that's what they did. But on the flip side, they were also able to have some fulfillment, pay the bills, you know, and that was to some degree a good thing. Um, so in this case, I do think there's a lot of opportunities. We talked a little bit when I was on your podcast about my wife's reselling business. That's very low
Right.
capital, like Dylan was talking about, and it didn't take a lot to get going, and we were able to make a sizable income off of that. So there are opportunities. I think with the internet, there are a lot of opportunities to get into that, but it still takes a special kind of person. My
That's
wife's
true.
super entrepreneurial. She has the drive for it. I don't really. I have ideas. I have some of the management, I guess, of it, but she's a go-getter. And I don't have that. So I mean, if you said, "Hey, Josiah, start up a business," I'd be like, "Well, it's a good thing I married an entrepreneur. You know, we can do this together." Um, you know, I don't have that drive. So I think it takes a special person. And I think again, it kind of goes back to college. It takes a special person to go to college or to go to this continuing education. It takes a special person to start up a business. You know, if we're being honest about capabilities. So
Yeah, let's have realistic expectations. Like, can everyone be an entrepreneur? Maybe, probably. Will they successfully pull it off? Absolutely not. Like, it's like you gotta like hustle and grind all the time. Like, don't get burned out, right? Like, you gotta have like a very healthy balance, you know, work, life, family, all those things. But like the other night my wife was like, "Hey, I'm actually really proud of you for you know, having a good balance in building up farm hop life and spending time with Milo and spending time with me and this like I think you're handling it really well." And I was like, "Thank you. It's really hard." Like there's a lot of work that goes like that's involved in everything, you know. You do want to make sure that you have quality time with your kids because it's like what else are you doing? Like why what else are you doing it for? And to like to bring up another point like being entrepreneurial Josiah, like that would be the greatest gift I could ever give my kids. It's like learn how to be an entrepreneur. Like if you can figure out how to make money versus earn money, I have nothing more to teach you. Like you're gonna figure it out.
Yeah, kind of going along that path. I think this topic happened since our interview, but we talked to our son Ted if like I don't know how it started if he wanted if we approached him on wanting to start a quail business or if he approached us,
Mm-hmm.
but he had the drive to get some quail, and so we did all the right things. We gave him the phone. He pressed all the buttons to call, and then he placed his order for quail all by himself.
That's awesome. How old is he?
He just turned 5.
Wow, that's impressive.
that's cool.
Yeah.
Good for him.
Albeit I am feeding them, but I'm sure that'll change soon here.
Sure. I mean, he's still 5. I mean, the fact that he's even interested in doing that kind of thing, like that's fine. Like, hey, why don't you balance your checkbook too, you lazy kid or whatever? Like, here, I need to see your bank account number and your EIN and, get the permit from the state to be able to operate this business. Like, what do you, no, you're baby steps.
Baby steps, yeah. And he showed the upfront desire to to get it off the ground. Every day he's volunteering to do like just one more thing to help the family out.
Dang, dude.
Like today he found our sledgehammer on the kitchen table. And he's like, where does this tool belong? I'll go put it away. Okay, correction. Go. What is it? It's a mallet. Okay, my wife corrected me. It's a mallet.
Close enough.
It's a specialized hammer. It's a specialized sledge. I wasn't gonna question whether or not or why you had a sledgehammer in the kitchen, but I was like, maybe he's doing some demo. I don't know.
Yeah, we were putting up a TV for one of our Airbnb guests.
Oh, I got you. Okay. Yeah. We have a comment here. It says from Sky Bubbles, do you think the average parent would encourage their kid doing something like that, or would they brush it off as a silly kid's idea?
Oh, talking about the quail business?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That's an interesting point. I think a lot of families would brush that off. But it's interesting because in like a typical let's go to kindergarten type family, I think that type of spontaneity and drive is kind of programmed out of them pretty quickly, at least by the age of 6.
Absolutely.
So I think more of the the ideas come from almost like an hierarchical approach where, let's say, kids enter the Cub Scouts or school or whatever institution it may be, and the cool ideas come down from above versus an organic interest-related desire to do something for yourself. Well, I'll give you a great example. Ted just learned how to ride his bike this weekend.
I think I saw that. And did you guys post that on Instagram?
I posted it right away on Instagram story right when he did it.
Nice.
Because technology's cool,
Yeah.
But we didn't do any of the okay, I'm gonna hold your body and we're gonna ride for a little bit and then I'm gonna let go and I'm gonna instill the fear of God into you while you try to balance and then you fall and you lose trust with your dad type thing. We just skipped past that. And
sure,
we were in the barn and my wife and I were talking and he said, "Oh, Mom and Dad, look quick, I'm riding my bike." So going back to going back to the question, we didn't teach him how to do that. We didn't drive him and say, "Hey, by the age of 5, you should be riding your bike." We didn't do that either. It just happened.
Right.
I think the other thing to note, you were talking about the Cub Scouts and whatnot, but given what I see with a lot of these kids, they wouldn't have the time to do it. It's not even just that it gets kind of driven out of them or whatever. It's just like I teach youth group, and the number of times that there's a school activity on a Wednesday night, so we'll like go a Wednesday, and then with 20 some kids, and then the next Wednesday there'll be 5 because there's a baseball game and track and field and this, that, and the other. And so I think a lot of times kids, especially ones that are enrolled in more things, they just wouldn't have the time. Like it would never occur to them simply because they don't have the free time. Or because they're tossed in front of a tablet or something when they get home, and it never occurs to them. They might want to be a YouTube influencer. I think it was last year. Well, it was probably right before pandemic. That was the most popular thing for an 8-year-old to want to be in the UK, right? So I mean, it's not. I don't know necessarily that the desire's gone, but I don't think that they have the time to look outside the box beyond the fact that all they see is YouTube. And it's unfortunate, but it also between the time and between, I guess, I mean, the hive mind that Dylan was talking about, where you just you don't get those ideas, you don't hear those ideas, you hear the ideas that everybody else has, versus
Right.
your own innovative idea, which is the key for a lot of that entrepreneurial stuff, is finding that niche or finding that hole in the market that you can fulfill. So
Yeah, it's like you gotta get. I don't think it's a silly kid's idea. I think it's uh get those creative juices flowing. So like they talk about like fossilization of the brain, right? So I suck at learning a new language. Like it's like it is really difficult for me to learn. Like my wife's good at German. My kid knows like more German words than I do. And so like because I wasn't like what they say is like you need to be able to hear those things when you're like a toddler or like at least like a young age. You need to hear these specific sounds like so that those parts of your brain like aren't fossilized and you can do speech better, like speak another language better. And so I think that same thing can apply to certain types of thinking, whether it be like entrepreneurship or being like art, like
I think thinking outside the box, like learning that from a
exactly.
young age,
Hmm.
rather than, like Dylan said, being put in the box from a pretty young age. You never learn to think outside of that.
Right. Like
You get stuck with this hierarchical scenario. So I think it is a benefit of being homeschooled and not being constrained by those things, whether it's your time or whether it's just how you think.
yeah, you have options to be able to pursue what you're interested in and kind of push the limits of what they're interested in. Like I'm not interested in that. Like, okay, but what if we did it more like this? Like, that is interesting. Like, so you can kind of be more flexible with how you teach your kids.
Yeah, Josiah made a great point about time. We were in a family that, I mean, my brother did sports. I was in Boy Scouts and powerlifting in high school, but we weren't maxed out to the nines every night. Like a lot of families here, it's activities at the Y, um, this sport, that sport, running through the drive-through to get food, go home, do homework, go to bed. Their lives are constantly filled with activities, and there's no room for outside ideas, or even just to be a kid.
Yeah, their own ideas. I mean, that's the when you were talking about the structure, that's the kicker more than outside ideas like that. It's their own ideas. I mean, your son may have heard about raising quail, or it may have been something that you said, but ultimately, he had to have thought, man, that's a good idea. I want to raise quail. Like, not every kid wakes up and says, I want to raise quail. Most kids probably don't even know what that quail are.
Right.
quite frankly. So those things, whether it exhibits itself in entrepreneurial thought or not, um, having that ability to think outside the box, to take your own ideas, to articulate them, or to put them in action, that's a big deal, and it has lasting ramifications. The job I have, part of the reason I got it was simply because I was willing to ask why, think outside the box, and do my job in a different way. Try and do my job better. And I always thought that that was pretty normal, but it turns out that's not. It's not. The average, you learn your job and you do it. And most people, that's life.
Mm-hmm.
And so teaching your kid to be able to say, I'm going to look at this problem in a different way. I'm going to look and see how to do this better. Whether that's raising quail or whether that's just examining how they do things in life in a better way, that out of the box thinking, that's a huge advantage of homeschooling, especially in a more free flowing environment where they can go at their own pace and do their own thing. And I mean, that's one of the reasons that we're trying to do that kind of thing, is to teach them to teach themselves, I guess, more than anything,
Mm-hmm.
or to use their brain doing it rather than learning a rote curriculum. So
I was talking with my mom a little bit over the weekend, about this whole deal and talking about like educating them. And I'm like, the bar is so low for like kids these days. Like, I barely have to do anything, and my kid's gonna just rise above his peers. Like, not to like toot my own horn or whatever. Like, I'm great. I mean, it's only been like 2 years that I've been a dad, so I've got a lot of effing up to do in over the next 2 decades. So, uh, but like the bar's so low that really, if if a company wanted to replace all of its employees with robots, they probably would. And the point is to give your kid the knowledge and know-how or skills to learn or think outside the box, that they're not replaceable by a robot.
Exactly. And even I think more important than you know I think the most important skill going forward, and I heard this from a course that I just took through work. Um, it's so what are the jobs that robots can't do? The jobs that robots can't do are human jobs, jobs that are thinking jobs, jobs that require you to be um, a genuine human that listens, cares about people, and can provide solutions that artificial intelligence can't do. And I can't think of a better environment to create humans to fill those human jobs than homeschooling.
yeah, I mean, literally, when you were saying that, that was my thought. Was like when you put your kid in a school, not dogging on public schools necessarily, but you're putting them in a factory and an assembly line of education, and that may be all you can give your kids. So again, I'm not dogging on that, but that kind of rote automation, it churns out very robotically the finished product. Whereas if you homeschool and you teach your kids strengths, and they come out as that person that's capable of doing all these things, rather than as this processed. I mean, it sounds mean, but the difference between going to McDonald's and getting a cheeseburger that they make billions of times a day, and going to your mom and pop burger shop in town, those burgers are worlds apart. They're both a burger, but those burgers, those finished products, they're completely different. And that's the advantage of having that unique ability, that you're not gonna get. You're not gonna get at McDonald's, and you're not gonna get. You can get it from a public school, but the average kid is gonna come out with very similar levels of ability than everyone else. It won't play to anybody's strengths or weaknesses. It won't help any of those things. It can't, by definition. So
Yeah, that's by design. Absolutely.
yeah. It's the only way to do it. So again, I'm not dogging on it. I mean, the only way McDonald's succeeds because they can make billions of burgers, and public schools succeed. Their task is to educate a lot of people. That's really the only way to do it. It's not. It's wildly efficient. It just turns out it churns out a product that isn't that great individually.
Right.
It's repeatable.
Yeah, there we go. That's a better
mass produced,
struggling to yes.
whatever you want to call it. Yeah, I get it. Absolutely. Interesting choice of I'm not to nitpick what you said, but it was an interesting choice of words to say that public schools succeed.
Some of them do. I mean, arguably you could say that we do produce sometimes.
There's a diamond in the rough in there every now and then, sure. Like it works for some.
I mean, most of the people that I work with are public schooled, and the company does okay, and
that's why the company only does okay is because they're public school kids.
Maybe I'm biased. I was homeschooled. I'm gonna homeschool my kids, so I'm biased, of course. I think I've benefited. I think I've benefited every company I worked with, and I think part of it is because I was homeschooled. It succeeded at its goal. Its goal was to create an average person, because that's all you're gonna get. When you go to McDonald's, you're gonna get an average burger. It's gonna be the same burger everywhere, which is actually, I think, a better success than public schools get, because they don't get the same. I mean, there's all those kids in Baltimore that can't read.
Wait,
so
Baltimore specifically?
What was that?
Baltimore specifically?
I was reading something about Baltimore. It was either reading or it was math. Something like the average kid there was actually illiterate. Like it was under 50% of the kids there could actually read. I'd have to look it up, but it was
That's
crazy.
So weird.
So yeah, I mean, it turns out things suck.
Listen to us in a first world country. What? Half the kids in a city can't read or do math or one of the two? Such a first world problem. It's so foreign to think that half a city's kids can't read or do math. It's
a specific school, but one of them, Patterson High School, of the 628 high school students, 484 read at elementary school level. 71 of those were at kindergarten level. 88 were at a first grade level, and only 12 of the kids read at the grade level.
Is it a school for the blind? Because they can't read?
I mean, most blind people can read Braille at least, right?
That's true.
But I mean, those numbers, I mean, yeah. So yes, public schools, some of them, and maybe there's some McDonald's that can't turn out a good burger either. I don't know. I don't go to McDonald's, so.
That's, yeah. Yep. Huh. Well, all right. Well, we are wrapping up on an hour. Why don't you guys tell people where they can find you and follow you and send you hate mail or something?
After dogging on public school, I probably deserve it. So. Well, you can find me Inventive15 on Twitter. I said this in the podcast, but eventually my wife's Instagram is gonna get a little more farm focused, and she'll pull it out of private. But that's it for now. So Inventive15 on Twitter. So
sounds good.
Yeah, and once again, I'm Dylan Schnese with Steady Presence. So Steady Presence is our family business that is primarily focused on farm events for homeschooling families. But we'll be doing farm dances, campouts, movie nights throughout the summer. And then with Steady Presence, my wife is a pregnancy registered dietitian and doula. So that it's what Steady Presence is it's a kind of an amalgamation of all of our family's interests, and we're just here to provide to be a guide on first familyhood, or traversing parenthood or homeschooling. We we're here to build community.
There you go.
And you can find us on Instagram at Study Presence, Facebook. I'm also on Float for anybody interested. But check out our website www.study-presence.com to find more about us. We also
Did you hear that? Don't forget, Dylan. Don't forget. Plug the thing. And I'm Matt Derosier of a FarmHopLife traveling homestead family. You can find us at FarmHopLife.com. So I appreciate everyone tuning in for episode 2 of the Monday Night Men's Forum, and I appreciate you guys for being here. It's been a lot of fun.
Yep.
Hang tight one second.
Matt.